LeetCode question 15 threesome. We are given an array called nums and we need to return triplets, that is nums of I, j and k, such that nums of I plus nums of j plus nums of k all sum up to give 0. Okay, so we have got nums as -1, 0, 1, 2, -1, and then comes -4. Since over here we need to return the elements and not the indices of the elements, we can sort this. So our step 1 would be to sort this array. Okay, so after sorting I would get -4, then comes -1, -1, followed by 0, 1 and 2. Okay, now we need to have nums of I plus nums of j plus nums of k is equal to 1. So assuming this is n1, n2 and n3, these three sum up to give us 0, that is n1 plus n2 plus n3 is equal to 0. So if we take n3 on the other side, we could say n2 plus n3 is equal to negative of n1. That is, the question can be reduced from 3 sum to 2 sum. Over here we could say that what we want is sum of two elements which give us negative of n1. Okay, so now let me show you. My first step over here, we have got iterator I. So to avoid duplicates, we check if I is equal to the previous element. Since I is equal to 0, over here we could not do anything. Okay, so over here my n1 is equal to -4, and my target which I will use to solve 2 sum, that is my target to solve 2 sum would be minus of n1, which is minus of -4, which turns out to be 4. Now I can send this array to a function called 2sum and then get the answers. So over here this array is sent to 2sum, okay, to get my target, that is 4. So I will show you my next step. So I send this to the 2sum function. So my 2sum function is there, which receives -1, -1, 0, 1 and 2, and the I for 2sum starts from here and the j for 2sum starts here. Okay, now I say, so this is 2sum and this is nums of I plus nums of j. So this is -1 plus 2, which is 1, and my desired target is 4. Since my sum which is equal to 1 is less than target, which is equal to 4, I increment I, so this will be I plus plus. So my iterator I moves over here, so I have I over here. Okay, now now my sum again is nums of I plus nums of j, which is -1 plus 2, which is 1. So my sum is 1, which is less than target, which is 4. So I do I plus plus, so my I moves from here to here. Okay, so my sum again would be nums of I plus nums of j, which is 0 plus 2, 0 plus 2, which is 2. So my sum again is less than target, so I do I plus plus. So my I goes on till here. So my sum again would be nums of I plus nums of j, that is 1 plus 2. So this is 1 plus 2, which is less than target. So we do I plus plus. So I plus plus over here, when we do I plus plus, I becomes greater than j. So we were unable to find anything for -4 over here. So what we do in the initial loop, we move this I from I is equal to 0 to I is equal to 1. Okay, and now we send this vector to the 2sum function. Okay, so my I is equal to 1 and nums of I is equal to -1. Okay, so my target, as we saw, n1 plus n2 plus n3, we require it as 0, or on the other hand we could say this should be equal to -n1. So my target is equal to minus of -1, which turns out to be 1. And for the 2sum function that we would call, these 4 elements would be sent, that is -1, 0, 1 and 2. So this is -1, 0, 1 and 2. So this is my I pointer and this is my j pointer. Okay, so I check if my sum, that is nums of I plus nums of j, and my target sent was 1. Okay, so I check if my sum, that is -1 plus 2, which is 1, which is equal to target, that is we have found this. Okay, so what we do is we push back this into a result. We push back this into a result array and then increment I and j. Okay, so I will be maintaining a result So in my result I will put n1, n2, n3. Okay, so my result would look like, so my n1 would be minus of target or n, so this is minus 1 and the two elements that sum up to give the target. So this is minus 1, and 2. Okay, and then I increment I and j. So my I comes out here and j comes out to be here. So my sum again is defined as 0 plus 1, which is 1, which is equal to target. So we push this into the result. So my result would be, we already have minus 1, and 2, and our new one would be minus 1, 0 and 1. So this is my result as of now. So now if I increment I and j, so these cross each other, so that is not required. So my I moves from I is equal to 1 to I is equal to 2. So over here we see these two elements repeat. So calling these again would be redundant because we want different triplets. Okay, so we increment I from here. So my I is 0 now. Okay, so my I is equal to, sorry, not my I, my nums of I would be 0, and my I over here would be, this is 0, 1, 2, and this is 3. This is 3. We know n1 plus n2 plus n3, we required it at 0. So n2 plus n3 is minus of n1. So my target would be 0. So when I call the toSum function, I would send these two elements. So this is 1 and 2. So this is 1 and 2. So this is my I over here, this is my j over here, and we require target, which is 0. So we see sum would be 1 plus 2, which is equal to 3, which is greater than target. So we do j minus minus. J comes to be over here, which is not greater than I. So we skip this part. Now my I moves on to I is equal to 4. Okay, so my I is equal to 4 and my nums of I is equal to 1. So my target would be minus of nums of I. So this is minus 1, and for my toSum function I have only 2 left. So I is here, j is here, which is not feasible. So my final answer would be only this. So I'll code now. So my first step would be to find n, that is the length of the nums vector. Okay, now if the size is already less than 3, we know we won't be able to form the triplet. So we simply return an empty vector. Okay, now my second step would be to sort this nums. So I do nums dot sort, followed by I create a result vector. So I create, let mutable result is equal to, I create a new vector. So I loop over all the elements. So for I in 0 up till n. So if my I check if I have already seen the current element. So what I do is, if my nums of I is equal to nums of I minus 1, in that case I don't need to do anything and simply continue. Okay, and then after that I create a target. So my target is negative of nums of I. Okay, then I need to create a function called toSum. So I'm basically converting a 3-sum question into a toSum. So I send the nums vector that is given to me, the target and the starting index to check from, and the ending index. So this is I plus 1 and minus 1, and also the mutable vector that is called result, which we need to return. So after coming out from this loop, we would have result. Now let me create the function called toSum. Okay, so I have a function called toSum. So it will take as input nums, that is a vector of integers called I32, followed by a target, which is also an integer of type I32. It has a mutable iterator that is called I, and a mutable iterator j. Okay, then we have the result, which will store the triplets. So this is a mutable vector of, this is a 2D vector. So this is also of type I32 individual elements. So yes, we form this. Now my first step would be, I'll run this code while I is less than j. Okay, so my first step would be to calculate and check if my sum, that is nums of I plus nums of j. We will see the relation of this with target. So if my sum is greater than target, I move my j pointer to the left. Else if my sum is less than target, then I move my I pointer to the right. Else in the final case, it means my sum is equal to target. So what I do is, so I say whether we have already used this I and j. So we say while I less than j and I plus 1 is less than nums dot length and nums of I is equal to nums of I plus 1. So this step basically is used so that we don't create copies and reduce redundancy. Okay, similarly, while I less than j and j is greater than 0 and nums of j is equal to nums of j minus 1, in these cases we do j is equal to j minus 1. So after coming out from this loop, we push these triplets into the result vector. So we create a vector. The elements that I will store is negative of target followed by my nums of I and nums of j, and then I'll do I plus plus, that is I plus is equal to 1, sorry, and j minus minus, and then that's it. Let me run this. So I found some error on this line. So I do self, I call the toSum function, send the nums target I plus 1 and minus 1. Sorry, this should be a comma. Okay, nums dot sort. This seems to be fine. Let me see what the error is. Cannot borrow nums as mutable since it is not declarable as mutable. So I can do over here, I can put this as mutable. Submit.